Welcome back, everybody. I know I haven't been doing a lot of these because the war in Ukraine has been going on and my efforts have been elsewhere. And I actually started one of my companies and I've hired a bunch of people in Ukraine. So I feel really good about helping people there and continuing to support my former country. But getting back to our show, I wanted to welcome our guest and somebody who the public has been trying for me to get to talk to. She's a wonderful author, and she has a couple of movies on Hallmark. Please welcome Jenny Hale.
Hi.
Hi, Jenny. How are you?
Doing well. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. I know we've been trying to make this work for a little bit. I'm glad that I think you were dealing with COVID, and yet you were still working and writing. How are you feeling?
I'm fine. Yeah,
Good.
I'm much better. I mean, it sort of knocked me down for a couple of weeks, but I just kept going and did the best that I could, and I'm fine now.
Yeah,
I'm
I,
good.
I remember the first time I had COVID. I started this series. So I started the series during COVID time because I had nothing better to do, and I was actually doing interviews while I had COVID. So I interviewed Ed Asner, the wonderful Ed Asner, who passed recently.
Mhm.
I was talking to him. He was having breakfast, and I was in my room locked up because I had COVID. So I know how that is. But I'm glad you're feeling better.
Yes, thank
Um,
you.
yeah, so you have a couple of, you have I think 21 books if I counted correctly. Am I wrong?
I would say you're right. I have to count myself because I've written so many at this point. I have to go to my website and count which ones are out.
That's
Usually when I write one, like right now I'm writing summer, but my Christmas one hasn't even come out yet. So I lose track of how many are actually on my website.
yeah, I understand. Well, on your website, I think that's where I've been, and if I counted correctly, it's 21, but it's probably more about to come out. So
You.
you're you're a prolific writer. I know that you write two per year, which is amazing. As a writer myself, and I don't write in your genre. I'm in the self-help and kind of empowerment genre and poetry. I have books, but it's definitely not two a year. It's a lot more time for me.
It's a crunch to do two per year. And a couple of years I've done three per year so that I could have extras for my new publishing imprint. So it was a lot to do three. I don't choose to do three if I don't have to. I'll stick to
I got
two.
it. So let's talk about the life of the author, right? Because when people think authors, they have this wonderful idea of J.K. Rowling or somebody else, and you write a book, you start writing on a piece of paper in a cafe, and then you are a multi-billionaire in a few years later. Um, and there's so many books out there. I remember when I published my book, everybody thought, oh my God, now it's out. You're a best-selling author. You're going to be rich. No. But why don't you share your story? Because you're much more of an author than I am, as opposed to somebody who's writing, a few things every few years.
Well, I think as to do it professionally,
Yeah.
it becomes a business like anything
Yeah.
else. And so there are parts of my day that are devoted to writing the words on the paper. And I did start out in the cafe on the napkin. I think everyone sort of starts out with this idea, of I think I'm going to write something, and that's where it begins, right? So, but once you get under contract and then you start to have deadlines and editors and packaging and cover design and marketing and publicity and all of the fun things that come along with writing a book and actually publishing it. The writing gets squeezed, and then suddenly I realized I used to be an educator. I used to be an educator. I taught elementary school. I was a district level educator for 18 years, and for about 3 of those years, I wrote at night and taught all day. And I couldn't wait until I could just write all day. But what happens is by the time I was at a level where I could write all day, my writing career was my all day job. And then I would write at night, just like I did as a teacher. So you end up filling your time with, all kinds of other things as well, which I really enjoy all of the other things too. So,
But let's dive into that because there is a lot of things to unpack in, in what you just mentioned. So going back, you were an educator for 18 years. So you would teach all day and then you would write at night. I have two kids, so I know, kind of one just graduated from elementary school. He's in middle school. Another one is about to graduate from high school. So I know the teachers and how much work they put in outside of the classroom. So you had a family, you still have a family. You have a family, you had small kids, you were teaching. You also had to be grading and you had to be doing everything else. And then you were doing writing at night. When did you sleep and did you actually sleep?
I just learned to compartmentalize what
Okay.
I do. So, I was very structured. I had to be very structured in my day. So when I would tuck in both my boys. They were little at the time, and I would tuck them in for bed. I would read stories with each of them. I would say prayers. We'd do the whole bedtime routine, and then, but on the way upstairs to their rooms, I would carry my laptop and leave it in the hallway. And then after I tucked them in, I would lie on my belly in the hallway with my laptop, and I was their nightlight until they fell asleep. And I would write on my belly in the hallway. And I actually wrote "Coming Home for Christmas" on my belly in the hallway. I no longer write on my belly in the hallway, which is really exciting. But that's how I did it. And then I would just stay there. Sometimes I'd look up and it would be 11 o'clock at night and my shoulders were killing me from, being like this, writing. But that's how I did it until it was bedtime. And then I would go to bed. And usually within those couple of hours, I could get 1,000 words
Mhm.
a day, and I've stuck with that. 1,000 words is what I do every day, even now.
Okay. So 1,000 words a day allows you to, to still have, and we'll come back into the balance and everything else that you're doing in life, but it allows you to do a couple of books a year, which is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, going back. So the first book that you mentioned, which is Coming Home for Christmas, which I saw on Hallmark. So I wanted to do my research, and I love Hallmark anyway. I watch them. Basically, here's the way that I look at Hallmark. I when I have my lunch, because I work, I'm in my office. So when I work, then I break for lunch and I watch some TV, downstairs when I'm eating. And usually that's not Hallmark. So that's more, I just finished Warehouse 13 for anybody who's a geek. I watch, some shows that are more kind of action and less a different energy, let's put it that way. And then in the evening, before I go to bed, probably starting with 7 o'clock on, if I watch anything, it's either sports or I watch Hallmark
Mhm.
because I like that energy and it's the peaceful, relaxing. Everything is happy. I don't need to stress. I don't need to have anxiety. I don't need to have PTSD. Waiting for somebody, a character who's about to get shot because they're in too deep in whatever sci-fi stuff they're doing, and that's Hallmark. So I watch Hallmark anyway, and then I just went and watched Coming Home for Christmas. I don't care what time of the year it is. Christmas movies are always awesome. So
Mhm.
that was my education on your writing. Um, that first book, and as you were writing on your belly, waiting for your voice to go to sleep, why that particular topic? Why kind of start out? Because people normally, there is an adage of you write what you know. Do you have a sister? Was there a problem in the family? What was the kind of motivation for that particular book? Or it just, hey, I'm a writer and this is a fun story and I'm going to explore and see where it
Well, I didn't know that I was a writer. I had
goes.
no
Okay.
idea. I had this original character in mind, for the hero. Now, this is the book here. I have it so you can see it. And I always have to look because once I download that book onto my, out of my head and onto the keys, I
Mhm.
can't remember it. And this is like 20 books ago. This was my first one. So I'm like, who is in it?
Yeah.
But the Robert, which funny story, by the way. So his name is Robert Marley, and we published this. I went through a million editors. We got it all out there, and my husband took one look at it. Took one look at it, and he was like, "You named the guy Bob Marley?" And so I didn't even think about that, but you don't think about it. But anyway, and he was only teasing. He's fine with it, but
Yeah.
he just noticed it. But I had the Robert character, that sort of quiet, brooding character. That character just sort of floated into my mind. And it really wasn't anything more than that. And so the story was built from that almost backwards. What would be his story? And then from his story, where would the heroine come in? And so I sort of backtracked. And when I was finished, I had coming up for Christmas.
It's amazing. It's very interesting. I'm a lyricist as well, and I think I'll ask you a question, but I'm going to get to it in a moment. So when I write lyrics, and different people do it differently. For me, it's I hear either a couple of words in my mind, or there is a melody that I hear, and then it starts kind of flowing from there. And a lot of times, I don't know, it just that one phrase, or same thing with poetry for me. It's that one phrase that kind of develops everything. So for you, it seems, and I don't know if it's just for this book or you do it with others as well. It just there's an inkling, there is something, there is a phrase, there is a word, there is a person, there's a music in your mind, and then it just starts the process.
Yes, and it's something different every time. I mean,
Mhm.
it was a person that, I mean, that's not even a real person. I don't, it was just the idea of a person. Or
Mhm.
sometimes it'll be a lyric to a song, or like something simple like a butterfly sometimes will do it, just anything. It's just you never know where it's coming from, and it's not like I actually do it. It just comes to me like a thought.
Yeah.
I don't sit and create. I create the story once I have the thought, but the thought is almost random and just sort of pops into your mind the same way your skin might itch and you itch it. You just sit there, you're just sitting there doing something totally different,
Mhm.
and this idea pops in. I don't know if you're like that, but that's how I am.
Yeah, no, it's and I think the difference between me writing poetry, you're writing books, and everybody else is that everybody gets some of these inklings and some ideas and some thoughts. It just we choose to write them down and see where it goes from there.
Yes, I agree.
And yeah, and the rest of it is a lot of hard work.
Yes. Then the real work starts after we get her in.
So does the book write itself, or do you write the book?
It depends on the book.
Okay.
There are some books that are so difficult to write that when I get to the middle, it's like quicksand, and I cannot figure out how to move past it. And sometimes I tend to write my first drafts very thin. That's
Mhm.
just how I write. I throw stuff down like spaghetti against a wall and see what sticks. And I have this loose idea, and even if I change a character in the middle of my book, I just change them right then and keep writing, even though it doesn't match what's at the top. And then
Yeah.
when I go into edit, I go fix it all. And so my editors get this sort of weird, sloppy mess at the beginning. And then they give me this nice editing letter. But then it's like, once I have the first draft, it's like a canvas. And
Yeah.
I do what they ask and then some. I can just sort of run with it after that. So um, sometimes the books write themselves. I had a couple, Butterfly Sisters was like that, The Memory Keeper, where I just had this idea and and my summer book right now is just the same way. It's just, it's like wine, flows like wine. And
Mhm.
then other times I sit there at about 45,000 words and think, this is going to take me 4 years. I know it. But it always ends up being a great story that I'm really proud of when I'm done. It just takes a little more work to get it there.
And I know some, I'm one of those. I meditate and I try to get into a particular state, and I noticed early on, because I was writing poetry since I was a kid, and I would write something, and everybody would say, "You didn't write this," and I'm like, "Yes, I did," and then I would answer them in a poetic form, proving that I actually wrote this. Uh, but I learned that, and people have different understandings or belief systems, but for me, I'm channeling something. So I'm connecting to something, and I'm channeling something, and I'm just in a lot of ways, I'm just the hands that are doing the typing because the information flows. So do you find some similarity with that, or is it different for you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are times where I'll go back and read something that I've written and don't even remember writing it. And I'll
Mhm.
think, wow, this is really good. And I thought it was awful. And it actually doesn't sound so bad, but I don't remember writing it. And then, like I said, when I start to write a book, when I'm in that zone of writing, once that's downloaded, I don't remember. I don't. I'm the worst author ever when it comes to PR for my books because I'm always like, who is in it? What is it? What is the story about? Because I've already moved on to the next one. And it's like you said, like this channeling of the only way I can explain it is it's almost like I'm watching a movie that isn't mine and I'm
Yeah.
typing what I see. And then after about 1,000 words, it just stops till the next day. I
You,
can't make it go anymore. And then the next day I get up and I start again. It comes back to me, and I can keep writing.
yeah, it's the observer. You're in essence, we're observing and we're documenting,
Yeah.
because it's and I tend to look at it like Michelangelo would say. I think it was Michelangelo, either Michelangelo or Rodin. They would say that I'm not trying to sculpt anything. I'm trying to release the sculpture from this from this block. And in a way, that's kind of what it is. I have an idea, and then the character just develops themselves. Or when I'm writing a book on self-help, it's really just something comes in. I'm like, I never thought of it that way, but I already wrote it. So if I didn't think about it, where did it come from? It's it's in acting, there is a really interesting exercise that people do that you because you're a writer and because you're a fiction writer, you have this very highly developed sense, which is the same thing that actors are trying to do when they're creating a backstory or when they're trying to figure out what is this character about. They basically just start kind of tinkering and like what is here, and then the character just evolves and presents themselves,
Mm,
and then your job is to continue kind of pulling those strings and seeing deeper and deeper, and then where that character would go and what they would do. So it's a really cool thing to use because the imagination is just a really uh, amazing tool that most of us don't utilize.
I agree. I totally agree. And I think that I was just talking with someone, I was at coffee about 2 hours ago, which
Mhm.
if I'm over, that's probably why, but we were just talking about how our world is not built for that sort of creative thought.
Yeah.
Everything is sort of compartmentalized and checked, and how for creatives that can be really anxiety filling because we just we need to move outside of the lines. We have a separate crayon color than everyone else. And I think everyone actually has that crayon color. They just don't pull it out of their box because they're used to using the same five that everyone's told them to use their whole lives.
It's like a font, right? We're used to using one font and we're not going to switch to a different font. And my thought is, why not? I want to play with different fonts. I want to see what it brings. So in imagination, in terms of, so how does a creative, because I have my ways that have worked for me. I want to know yours. How does a creative function in a left brain world? What is the
Um,
way that you find balance without exhausting yourself?
Well, I have a very helpful husband who keeps me, with tasks and don't forget you have, don't forget.
Yeah.
But I think that, It does make the creative very anxious. I was very anxious when I was younger, and it took me a long time to realize who I was and how I see things, and that that's not wrong to see it that way, even though the rest of the world doesn't operate that way. But I think that there's a side of me that is the rule follower, the type A, organized, OCD slightly, very, but I think that the reason I'm like that is because it's a coping strategy to help me through the world. And as a teacher, I mean, my classroom used to be everything labeled, everything color coded. It looked like Pinterest threw up in my classroom. And I used to joke with my teacher friends, and I would say, "Well, I have to create a classroom that an idiot can walk into and teach because most of the time I'm the idiot." So I go in and I'm like, "What are we doing?" I'm so blah. But if everything's color coded and labeled and in its place, then I can function. So for me personally, that's how I function. Is I'm so super crazy organized. Everything's color coded. Everything is in its place, and that's how I can manage with
No,
my.
it makes sense. I was not organized, and organization was never one of my strong suits, and I had to learn. I live with a incredible, work ethic level that I've never seen in anyone else, nor will I ever try to achieve anything close to it. That needs to have everything organized, and she's a chief financial officer, and there's a reason for that. So I live with my wife, who's been trying to teach me how not to be the Mr. Misorganized. But it's a tough thing. The only kind of tricks that I've made that work for me is what are my top three things that I need to do today? Write down lists on my phone. I have kind of different apps that remind me of stuff, and
Mhm.
then it's just not, it's trying to get yourself, forget multitasking. First of all, I don't think multitasking is something that works anyway, because our brains cannot be doing multiple things at the same time. Well, we can do them, but we're going to suck at both. So, focus on one at a time. And I don't do well when I am focusing on one thing and then I get bombarded from other places. So I kind of have to, you know, put myself in a, this is what I'm doing and nobody else talk to me at the moment. And then it works. So I've used tricks. I think all of us have to find things that work for them.
Yeah, I
For
mean, even in as organized as I am, I'm still the one walking around going, "Has anyone seen my phone? Does anyone know where my glasses are?" I still can't find them. And my husband's like, "Well, don't you put them in the same place every time?" But I don't, because I'm not thinking about where I'm setting it, because my mind is already on the third thing that I thought of after setting it down. So I still struggle with that, but I do the same. I put reminders. My phone will ping me, even in the dead of winter. It will ping me at 8 o'clock and say, "Water the flowers outside," because I usually have pots of flowers outside, and in the summer I need to water them because we're in Nashville and it's like 100 degrees. So if I don't, they'll die. So I put it in my phone, and I have all kinds of little reminders in my phone, the same way that push through.
But it's hilarious what you said about misplacing your phone or keys or things, because that CFO that's downstairs, that's exactly what we're dealing with. I am the unorganized one, and I know exactly where my phone and my keys are because I put them in the same place. I know where they are. It's not a problem for me to ever find it. She has to. She and my son is like that as well. They have to have tags. So the Apple Air tags, they put them on everything because they can't find anything. And it's like, how does that work? You are the most organized, and I'm the one that knows where anything is. It's,
So true. I don't know. I need like a little basket or something that says phone, and I put it in there, because I will inevitably put it somewhere, and I have to ask three of my family members to start calling it, and I'm running around.
yes.
And it'll be somewhere weird, like my closet, shelf, or, where I've set it while I'm doing something else. something like
It's so funny to me.
that.
Um, in terms of publishing, so my first book I wanted to get published because I want to get published. I want a publisher. I want a publisher, and I submitted it to a bunch of places, and a bunch of places said no, or actually they didn't say anything, which is kind of the usual. And then I decided that I'm going to go with Balboa Press. Balboa Press was, I think it's still an imprint of Hay House, and I went with them, and essentially it's kind of this, it's self-publishing without the self-publishing.
Mm.
And they did it, and you pay them a sum of money, and they take their percentages, and they promise a lot of things that did not happen. So it was a very frustrating experience. And then I pulled that book, and I self-published, and I created my own publishing house, which, as it's not that difficult to create a publishing house. It's actually running it and doing something with it. But
Yeah.
creating it is not a big deal. So I created a publishing house, Human Potential Press, and then I published my book, and then I got through the different distribution channels. I got that book in Barnes and Noble, in other places, and I have my photos with me standing next to the book, so I got that part. But what I kind of took out from the whole publishing world is that really the publishers are going to take a lot of your money, and it's not going to be, kind of where you think it's going to be. You still need to do all of your own advertising and marketing and PR work. Now, there is a different level, right? So at the level where I was, that's likely the reality, and self-publishing worked much better for me. I'm sure there are wonderful publishing houses which do everything for you and you still make money. What has been your experience without trying to get you into trouble because you have a publisher and you actually have a publishing house?
Yes. Well, my publisher, I went in digital. So I went through digital publishing with a publisher, and then sort of learned it from them, just by watching because I love what the more I got into writing, the more I realized that I actually wanted to hang out with my publishing team. I
Mhm.
didn't go into the writers groups. I just wanted to hang out with the publishing team, which probably was pretty foreshadowing as to what I went on and did. But my publisher was fantastic. I loved them. I went, their book tour, they're out of London. They're owned by, I believe they're under Hachette is the main publisher, and they're under that. And then my books, because Book Tour is under Hachette, Forever Grand Central is also under Hachette. So Forever Grand Central is the U.S. Publisher that puts my books in stores, and then they're digital through Book Tour. But as I got going with it, what I started to notice was I literally wanted to hang out with them and be in their meetings about my branding and my packaging and where I wanted to take my stories and titling, and that stuff is what got me jazzed. And
Yep.
so the more I did it, the more I thought I want to do that side, but that's the publisher's side, right? Because the author writes and then the publisher does all that. And so I wanted to do it. And so when 2020 hit, with COVID, I was convinced the world was going to end anyway. So I thought, well, let me just try it. I don't know. We might not be here, in a year. They're talking about killer locusts and all kinds of other stuff coming our way. So I went ahead and I published a book myself to see if I knew. I want to make sure that there wasn't more that I didn't know. I wanted to make sure that I understood how to do it.
Mhm.
And that book went on to be the number one new release in clean and wholesome romance on Amazon.com. And so then I said, okay, I think I think that publishing is probably more where I'd like to be
Mhm.
than just writing. But in doing publishing, I can still do writing because I can write and publish it and
Yeah.
publish other people. And I think it's kind of cool too for writers to know that the head of their publishing imprint is a writer
Right.
herself and
Yep.
has done it. I've been in the weeds with editing, and I've had to deal with all of that, everything that they will have to deal with. So I started Harpeth Road Press, my own publishing imprint. And now my books are published right now. All of them are published with Harpeth Road Press. And the more I've gotten into it, the more I realized that it's almost like my teaching and my writing career have done this, because now what Harper Thread Press does is we inform authors on how to do the part, the marketing, the platform building. What do edits look like? What is it going to feel like to when you put your book out on launch day? What happens after launch day? How long is it going to stay up there before it starts to slide down? All
Yeah.
of the questions that I had as an author, which my publisher answered very, very well, they were fantastic. But all of my questions, I've created lessons, and we're building our imprint around rallying under the author and helping them to be the biggest success they can while we sell the heck out of their book. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
No, that's perfect. I'm glad somebody is doing that. Um, it's difficult to be an author and somebody who actually promotes their book properly, because there's so much information out there and so many ways to get discouraged. And it could be a long process. I talked to the name of the book is The Four Agreements. So I talked to the author of The Four Agreements, whose name escapes me at the moment, and I was saying, listen, I have my book. How did you get yours? He's like, libraries, two people, five people meeting, and you just keep going and going and going, and then it starts kind of, the recognition gets out there, and you start doing a little bigger and a little bigger things, and it takes a while, and that's how you go. And then, I remember seeing, best-selling author here or this list, and then you realize how some people are doing it, and then you get discouraged because it's like, but that's not really, you're not really a best-selling author because you just kind of, did a whole timing thing and an email marketing campaign, and it's like and there is a lot of that stuff going on that people just don't realize. So I'm glad that you're doing.
Have. Those are the kinds of lessons we have. Like,
Yeah.
how, because our goal is not to be a number one bestseller on a Tuesday and then never again, right?
Mhm.
Our goal is to sell books and to
Yeah.
sell a lot of them. And
Yeah.
so that's what we delve into. How do you do that? And I know there are a lot of authors who don't want to have to take on that burden.
Mhm.
And so I'm the weird one, I'm the weird author that, all my author friends are like, you're so weird. Like, nobody wants to do all that, but I do. I mean, that, and I think that's the same way we said that writing sort of comes through you.
Yeah.
I feel like whatever this is that makes me want to do it is coming through me in my passion for doing it. And so I don't mind getting up at 6 a.m., and, still in my pajamas with my glasses and my retainer, and I'm like working. I don't mind it because it's fun. It's what I was built to do, I think. So that's what we're all about, is we do not make anybody pay anything. We operate like a traditional publisher, in that when you submit to us, if we publish you, not only do we publish you and do it to the very best of our ability and keep you selling as long as we possibly can, but we also teach you what you can do on your side to build your platform as an author. So when you put that next book out,
Mhm.
it goes.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're doing it, and more 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 reality needs to be shown to the authors. So happy that that's a part of your approach. Let's talk about balance as we're wrapping this up, because you just mentioned, waking up at 6 a.m. You have a husband, you have a publishing house, you have two books a year, um, you have a family. How do you balance everything?
Um, Balance is an interesting word,
Hmm.
because really what it is more for me is making sure that I have secured that family time, right? So if securing that family time means that I get up much earlier and go to bed much later, then
Hmm.
I do that. and not everybody works that way. But I think that, that's sort of, I mean, there are the like Tuesday nights where my husband's like, are you coming in? Are you gonna stop? And I'm like, I promise I'm gonna stop. Give me just a minute. But there are other times, where we just, everything that we do has to be deliberate. So I deliberately make sure that I have my family time. And then I deliberately make sure I don't fluff around. I don't have time. You know what I mean? Because in order to run the publishing imprint, to write the books, to do all the edits, to help the authors, to see my kids, I homeschool a child, to do all of those things, I have to keep going,
Yeah.
and which works for my personality because I'm an extrovert. I don't have to stop. I don't need a lot of downtime. When my head hits the pillow, I'm out for the night until the morning.
No, that's
I just
that's
go.
awesome. That's awesome, and I really um, I love people who follow their passions, who make their passions into a career, and then are able to balance everything and go with it. And you're one of those examples, and it's a real treat.
No, thank you. And it's, I mean, it's kind of like that. What's that quote? Like, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Right.
And I think that's what people are like. Oh my gosh, you work all the time. And I'm like, really? No, I get to play all the time. I'm
Mhm.
playing all the time. From 6 to 11.
Yeah, and it's great because it's obviously energizing you, and what people, and you can look at your own lives and you can see that if you're doing work that's dull and you hate it, you're drained, and if you're doing something that you love, you're energized. So apparently you don't have to sleep as much if you're energized by what it is that you do during the day.
True. Or just sleep. Like I said, I don't have any downtime. It's like the minute I stop, I fall asleep. So I can't sit down. If I lie down on the couch, it's over.
Yeah,
I'm out until the morning.
that's perfect. Well, Jenny, it's such a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on to the show and taking time out of your very busy schedule, as we all know. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. And thanks for everybody for tuning in to another episode of Let's Dive In. All the information about Jenny, her books, and the 2 movies that are on Hallmark Channel are right below the video. Click at the description, go follow Jenny everywhere, and take a look at her stuff. Take care, everybody.